Good morning, everyone. Today, I was quoted in the Wall Street Journal an article about corporate diversity programs, which implies that corporations, including Walmart, Harley-Davidson, Tractor Supply, John Deere, and others, have reduced their focus on corporate diversity and inclusion programs in response to political activists like Robbie Starbuck and others who are threatening these companies with retribution from consumers if they don't stop their left-wing behavior. Now, there's nothing wrong with politics. Politics is part of what makes a country work. We need to have debate about issues of all types. But for a political activist to promote political movements and use politics to threaten corporate leadership is actually a very bad trend. And the reason it's a bad trend, and by the way, this is a trend that's been going on since Donald Trump was elected the first time, where he in particular makes decisions to single out single corporations for issues that he in particular finds unpalatable to his political positions. But that's been going on now along the lines of DEI for quite some time. In fact, it sort of shocked me that SHRM decided to remove the word equity from its DEI agenda somewhat in response to this, when actually this is all about equity. That's really the only reason we do it, is to be fair. And so the argument goes as follows. The politicians or the political activists claim that DEI programs fly in the face and contradict meritocracy. So in other words, what they will state is that we want to have companies where performance is rewarded in an unbiased way. And of course, if you discriminate in hiring or pay, you can be sued by the EEOC anyway. So we don't need DEI programs because it's already illegal. The implications of this argument are that if you promote diversity and inclusion, allyship, other forms of perhaps affirmative action, that you are actually working against meritocracy because you're allowing people who may not be the best performers to either make more money or get a better job or get promoted in lieu of the higher performing people who may not be in this disadvantaged class. Now, very logical argument, easy to understand, makes perfect sense, and lots of people buy it. But I'll tell you my opinion and experience in this domain, having done research and consulting in HR for almost 3 decades. It's kind of a ridiculous argument. Of course we want a meritocracy. Of course. We want the company to perform well, and we want strong performing people to be rewarded, and we want to build a culture of continuous improvement. No question, no debates whatsoever. However, human beings are biased. I don't need to tell you all the different forms of bias we have. We have location bias, recency bias, bias towards people that are like us, bias towards people that are our same race, our same age, our same religion, our same city, our same eye color, whatever it may be. We are born with a tendency to fear or perhaps just mistrust or not understand people that are different from us. Now, I grew up in a very heterogeneous city and culture here in California where there were lots and lots of minorities. I actually went to a high school that was 60% Black. So, for my particular situation, a highly racially diverse culture is normal, and I expect it, and I don't think anything of it at all. When I go to the UK or other countries where there's a diverse culture, it doesn't seem odd at all. When I go to a place where there are no diverse cultures or the people are all the same, I notice it. It's odd to me. And of course, that's just the way I am. That's my bias. Other people have different biases. And when we hire lots of people into a company, they bring their biases with them. And I'm not judging bias. I actually think it's just part of who we are as animals, as humans. However, when it comes to creating a team of people, hiring people, making decisions on who to promote, making decisions on who to give more money, deciding who to work with and who not to work with, these biases weigh in. And the reason HR does things like DEI is not, it should not be to teach people about slavery or history. By the way, that's kind of where it went sideways. They're to identify and help people become aware of their biases so they can create a meritocracy. And you can go through every company I've ever met, and you can see companies with bias and those without. And actually, companies that focus on the DEI agenda are very warm, welcoming, collaborative, innovative companies because everybody feels included. And the problem with a meritocracy-only culture, which I have experienced in some of the companies I've been in, is it actually can create bias because people with better college degrees, people that are taller, people that look better, people that speak better, whatever it may be, will tend to become those that get promoted. And I don't know why that is, but I'm just telling you through my own observation. We did a fairly exhaustive study of DEI a year or two ago called Elevating Equity, and we pretty much discovered that the companies that avoid these DEI programs tend to suffer through lawsuits, through discrimination, through poor customer experience, through difficulties of hiring, through high turnover, etc. Because these biases creep into the organization and they tend to grow. If the top executive team is white males, just as an example, or white females or Asian females or whatever it may be, and they behave in a way that reinforces their cultural similarities, everybody else sees it, everybody else senses it, everybody else tries to go along with it. It's a strange thing, but it does happen. When I worked at IBM in the 1980s, a long time ago when we had affirmative action, I worked for an African-American manager. My branch manager, which was a very big job, was a woman from the Middle East. My regional manager, who was a very senior executive, was a war veteran who had no hands. He had mechanical arms. They had a lot of really amazing human beings working at IBM at the time who were very, very diverse. We had a lot of actually people at IBM who married each other because there were a lot of women in senior positions. I don't know if it's like that anymore, but it worked really well. Now, we have talked to Chevron, Target, Walmart, L'Oreal, MasterCard, lots and lots of really amazing companies. And I've met the DEI leaders in many of these companies. And occasionally you will meet a DEI leader who's a social activist. And these are the people that are, failing because we don't want to learn about history or slavery or disaffected classes at work. We just want to know how to do our jobs well and to be good partners and teammates. So you have these political players. Robbie Starbuck is the one who's the most famous at the moment, but there's lots of others in the Trump administration who are promoting the DEI must die agenda. By the way, Elon Musk is also doing this. And this agenda is driven by the right-wing political movement. And of course, the purpose of the agenda is not really to promote diversity or meritocracy. It's to create more Republican voters. That's really the reason political parties exist. And they do believe, and I think it's pretty clear from most of their comments, that a more diverse environment tends to lead to more democratic political wins. Now, that's not true at the moment. Right now, the Democrats in the United States have actually lost that position, and they may or may not get it back. But these are political drivers. And so the question I ask myself is, whether or not you agree with any of the logical arguments, do we want politicians telling business people what to do? And other than following the law and behaving ethically and paying people fairly and treating people safely and taking care of the society and taking care of global warming and pollution and health and so forth, those things we absolutely want politicians to tell executives to do and make sure they do. Do we really want them to direct our C-level leaders and others to behave in a certain way because of their political agenda? I would argue no. And it's not only bad for the country, it's bad for business. And the reason that the United States is so successful is because we have this amazing, dynamic, innovative, performing business culture. You could argue that everything that's wrong about the United States is everything that's right about the United States. We have a dog-eat-dog, cutthroat business, economic culture, and that is why we grow, and that is why companies buy each other, and that is why we have VCs, and that is why we have innovation, and that is why we have technology, and that is why we have billionaires. And even though there are lots of downsides to the United States economy, for the most part, it is strong because of this animal spirit culture that we have in this country. Now, if you're undereducated, if you're Black, if you don't speak English, if you're handicapped, you don't get to participate in all that as well as others. You can, but it's harder. You have to overcome more obstacles. That is the way the United States works. Whether you like it or not, we've done millions of things over the years to try to fix it, and we will continue to do things to try to fix it. And the country has become, even though we talk about immigration policy all the time, very heterogeneous. And I'm speaking mostly from the West Coast where I live, but it's true in most parts of at least the big cities. Most of the new jobs and the new hires that have come in the last few years since the pandemic have come from immigrants. I know in California, almost half, more than half of California workers were not born here. So this dynamic culture we thrive on and love is fueled through a diverse workforce. And what we concluded when we did our study called Elevating Equity was that the real story of DEI is not teaching people about DEI or history or equity or inclusion or psychological safety or microaggressions. It's none of that. It's really about taking a business-centric approach to the business we're in and applying the principles of fairness to that approach. If you're Chevron, for example, and you want to drill for oil in African countries, you need to be able to appeal to and negotiate with African leaders. If you are Target and you want to sell high quality goods to disadvantaged neighborhoods, you need to know what they want to buy, and you need to hire people into those stores. Ditto Walmart, ditto everybody else. If you're Amazon and you want to hire a whole bunch of truck drivers or delivery agents or warehouse workers, and they're going to be from various different backgrounds and they're going to have lower wages, you have to have some form of a diverse hiring experience or they won't join you. Ditto McDonald's, everybody else. Now, I can't speak to Harley Davidson. I can't speak to Tractor Supply. I can't speak to John Deere. These are Midwestern companies that may or may not have a diverse mentality. I don't know them very well, but I do know from the hundreds and hundreds of companies that I talk to and the hundreds of conversations we have with HR leaders that diversity and inclusion strategies are important, needed investments in corporations. And let's face it, if you remember your career when you were young, and I remember, quite a bit older than most of you, early in your career, it's very easy to make mistakes. It's very easy to do things that aren't necessarily in the best interest of the organization because of the way you were raised. And so we all have a learning experience in our careers on how we're going to learn to negotiate and team and partner with other people. Now, when I was at Deloitte for almost 7 years, it was a very non-diverse company, to be honest. Very few African Americans when I was there, certainly in the business areas that I was in, and mostly people with college degrees. So it's a fairly rarefied environment. Deloitte, however, was very focused on DEI to the degree that they could be, and did a series of pretty detailed analysis of consulting teams that were diverse. Now, I don't just mean black and white or Asian or male and female. I mean old and young, different geographies and nationalities. And they found, and I learned this at Deloitte, that the more diverse teams had much better client outcomes. They were more creative. They felt more psychologically safe as a team. They had better relationships with clients. And this was proven statistically in a report called Waiter, Is That Inclusion in My Soup? Which was, I think, one of the best named reports I've ever read. So I have no question in my mind that these investments pay off. Now, what I read about and talked to the Wall Street Journal about in the latest article that came out was companies taking public positions where they were doing away with externally facing, maybe high leverage, high visibility DEI initiatives, funding VCs that invest in Black companies or women-owned companies, things like that. And I think the reason they did that was very pragmatic. They didn't want to have a bunch of customers upset or inflamed at some position that the company took. And what, my experience has shown me is that as a business leader, you're better off staying away from all of those topics because none of them help you. If you alienate the left, you get no business from the right. If you alienate the right, you get no business from the left, or vice versa. And when we make products and services, unless we're political animals ourselves, we just want to get customers and we want to make customers happy. That's really all we're here to do. We're not here to pick sides. I think it's shocking to some degree that Musk and Trump seem to have convinced CEOs that they have to give him $1 million for his inauguration to stay on his good side. I think this whole trend towards politicizing the business community is destructive to the United States. It is an oligarchic direction. I think it will fade over time. I don't think it's going to last, but it's certainly hot at the moment. And this is why being a business executive is so tricky. You tend to have to keep your personal opinions to yourself and do what's best on behalf of the company. And that leads me to one more topic along the lines of this whole conversation, and that is this idea of what I call corporate citizenship. I think of a company or a business as a collection of individuals who come together because they believe in a mission, they want to solve a problem, they want to help their customers or their clients in a particular way, and they get a kick out of it for some reason. They get a kick out of it because they're paid well, but also they get a kick out of it because they like the work and they like the team and they like the mission and the purpose. And so as a collective group of people in your company, you and your employees are a small society. You have everything that every society has. You have inequality, you have people that are left out, you have political issues of who's trying to make decisions and who's not, and who's in charge and who's not in charge, all that stuff. So in order for your little society to work in the bigger society, you need to practice what is called citizenship. Citizenship, if you look it up, means acting on behalf of the society and yourself, doing things that might be in your own self-interest, but also doing things that are in the organization's interest. And this is what happens in corporations. People join projects, they help each other, they do mentorships, they do onboarding, they develop people, they coach people, they give people feedback to try to make the company better. It may or may not make you as an individual more successful in your job, but it will make you a better citizen. And this idea of citizenship, to me, is why and where DEI fits. When we have a culture inside the company that is truly inclusive and truly fair and truly unbiased. And by the way, I think a lot of these DEI programs were not good citizenship because they were actually isolating people and separating people in ways that they didn't want to be separated. Then your company thrives because you will have problems, you will have layoffs, you will have reorganizations, you will have competitors, you will have bad quarters, bad years, bad months. And when those things happen and you have to make decisions, you want to try to make them in a collective way. And it is the collective, collaborative thinking of the organization as a whole that powers you through these changes. Sometimes, in fact, if you look at Intel, you look at Nike, you look at Boeing, sometimes companies, Southwest, you look at companies that have actually crises where their entire business model is under attack and perhaps they were complacent and a competitor took their core value proposition away. A good example of this is Philips, company we've worked with a lot. Those companies reinvent themselves through their citizenship, through their sense of collective thinking, through their collaboration, through their collective wisdom, which does not work when people don't agree with each other, don't like each other, don't get along with each other, don't trust each other. So DEI is part of that. Interestingly enough, as I read all the articles about this and I talk to companies about it, what I hear is that most C-level executives are really paying lip service to the politicians. They are doing what they need to do to maintain their brand, but they're still investing in DEI. They're still investing in inclusive hiring. They're still investing in pay equity strategies. They're still working harder than ever to improve performance management, which is a never-ending project in companies. They're still trying to figure out who the best leaders will be amongst a highly diverse slate of candidates. They're still doing that stuff. So as interesting as it is to read about it in the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or wherever it may be, publicists and reporters love to write about this. My experience with hundreds of companies is that this is alive and well and it is doing what it needs to do. So that's my opinion on this topic. We are going to do more research on it this year. We always study it. We always talk to companies about it. Join us at the Big Reset. Join our academy if you want to learn more and see what's going on over here in our business. And going into 2025, we're going to have some pretty weird politics going on in the United States, at least. But let's just keep our head above the water and march ahead with a great culture in our companies and a focus on our own internal citizenship and making the society around us better as well. One more thing, I posted a video on my LinkedIn the other day on abundance versus scarcity. I think one of the reasons people are afraid of DEI programs or affirmative action is this idea of scarcity. Oh, there aren't enough jobs, there aren't enough senior positions, there isn't enough pay. So if we bend over backwards and give reparations to people that have been harmed, there won't be enough for the great people who are performing. I look at it the other way around. I look at it as an abundance mentality where if we take care of the people that have been left behind, the people that are ahead are going to do great. They're going to do better. There's more than enough to go around. What we don't want to have is groups of people in our company that are poorly treated or underpaid or left behind, because they really make it harder on everybody else because of that condition. Anyway, that's my opinion. I'd love to hear from you if you have any other thoughts on this. Have a fantastic 2025. Thanks for now.